It's Trial Tuesday once again. A shooting over the weekend, possibly involving a Charleston City police officer, now being investigated by the State Law Enforcement Division. Attorney David Ayler, who's familiar with such cases, joins us this morning to talk about this case and why the State Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, is now involved in the first place. So, Counselor, thank you so much for coming on there. Obviously, a very tragic thing. 19-year-old shot, a single bullet to the head. We're still not sure about the circumstance of this, but we bring SLED in because it is police, perhaps involved shooting, and they really want to get this one right and find out what happened.
Yeah, essentially, you see this often in cases that involve potential shootings that involve police officers.
Right.
And why they bring SLED in as opposed to bringing someone else is SLED obviously is a separate agency. And so they're going to come in and take a look at it as a whole and do an investigation, just like any normal police department would do an investigation, except in this situation, of course, you have an officer of the local agency involved in the shooting.
So what happened is that officer responded to Bridgeview. He said he saw, the 19-year-old victim in this case, and says that he called for some kind of altercation, and that's when that shot rang out. Now, the officer and Chief Mullen insist that his officer did not fire a shot. So exactly how does this thing play out if SLED is there investigating that shooting, but the officer says that he indeed did not fire a weapon?
Well, they're going to look at a number of different things. They're going to look at what you just mentioned, the radio calls that came leading up to the incident and then also after the incident. Beyond that, they'll start to canvass the neighborhood and start to get witness statements of what they heard and maybe what they saw. Again, we're in an apartment complex, so you would think that someone had to see something.
Sure.
Outside of that, they are going to interview the officer in great detail. It'll essentially be like sort of what you see on TV. They'll sit him down, they'll go through a statement as a whole and, ask questions that come from that. You'll see the officer have a lawyer in these situations. That doesn't mean that the officer's done anything wrong. It's just to protect his or her legal rights. I've been on both sides of this. I've represented officers that have been involved in shootings. I've also represented victims that were involved in officer-related incidents. So as a whole, it's a very good process in regards to making sure the truth will come out, and that's going to come from SLED because there's not going to be any biased approach. They're coming in looking at this from a very factual standpoint.
Colleague of yours, Andy Savage, well-respected attorney in town, clearly he's representing the victim's family in this, and they really want answers and they want them quickly. So how fast do you think SLED can get that preliminary investigation out?
It moves fairly quickly, but they don't want to rush anything. There's a lot of different details. Just like any investigation that involves shooting is going to take a while just to make sure they understand exactly what happened. The family in this situation brought in their own attorney. They brought in an excellent attorney, and that's a very good move to have, simply because then you have someone that understands the system, knows the people they're dealing with, and will help to try to find out exactly what happened.
Well, let's talk about forensics in this case because, it is being thrown around a possible idea that this could have been a suicide. Wouldn't that be able to be differentiated just due to gunshot residue on hands as well as blood splatter, those types of things?
Those would definitely be the things you look at. Also determine on exactly where the bullet entered into the head and what angle the police officer states he was at the time the actual shooting occurred. You'll also look at things like where did that gun come from? Was there any connection they have to the gun, to the slain young man, or was it just, come from someone else? It maybe came into the crowd later. Different circumstances like that, and that's what they're really going to try to determine. I think you saw the coroner come out early and say that this young man was actually shot in the head, simply to really quash some of the rumors that there had been a shooting in the back.
Okay, so basically with that evidence, this is only a matter of time before we find out what really happened. It seems like with all of those indicators that you're going to get a straight answer here at some point.
You would hope so, and you would think so. I mean, with the system that they've used, this is what has worked. Throughout the United States, they bring in outside agencies to do exactly this. So it's not a good old boy system. Most of these SLED officers don't have personal relationships with the local agencies to simply very much by the book process.
Right.
So what you're ultimately going to see is this officer either reinstated or, if there was actually criminal activity on part of the officer, he or she, of course, would be charged.
I do realize the irony in this question, but do you think it's a good strategy to have Chief Mullen as well as Andy Savage kind of playing this thing out, the back and forth in the media?
Well, I think that the media is going to ask a lot of questions from both sides. They want to know how the family feels, what the family thinks, and that's where their attorney or spokesperson is going to come out on that side. As far as Chief Mullen, it appeared that a lot of people were asking a lot of questions that weren't getting answered by the city police. They're limited in what they can and can't say, but obviously he felt like it was the time to make some statement, even though many feel like the statement didn't go far enough.
Certainly we'll be keeping an eye on this case right here on Low Country Live, Trial Tuesday, and on ABC News 4. as well as our website. Attorney David Ayler, thank you so much for your time,
Thanks
sir.
for having me.
Do appreciate that. Much more Low Country Live after this.
Trial Tuesday, brought to you by attorney David Ayler.